by what you go through, by what you do, you're flowing with that higher purpose. That's the bridging of the disconnect. And I really believe that's what we need in our lives as we set up these agendas for any given day. We experience various levels of failure, various levels of imperfection in trying to accomplish those agendas. And we lose track of the fact that God is guiding us through this materiality and difficulty to appreciate and understand the higher consciousness, meaning, value, and purpose of the whole process. That's basically what we're going to here. Now, the thing to remember is that we experience despair, desolation, complete ruin when our agenda fails. Okay, now let's be honest. My agenda is so perfect. My agenda is just so wonderful. I love my agenda. And when it fails, that's bad. See, I get upset. This is the way we are. We become very attached to the expectations we have in any given moment. Very attached. Can't transcend those expectations. We just want things to be better. Things are not better. We get powerfully, amazingly upset. Foundational rule of human life today: there is no limit to how upset one person can get. There's no limit to how big of a mess one person can make. So you can see how important, how vitally important it is for us to bridge this disconnect and this gap so that we can feel, even if our personal agenda is in disaster mode, even then we can have that transcendent feeling, that transcendent idea that we are flowing with the larger process of vision. So verse 11, it gets very powerful at this point. I said, this is Isaiah in his dialogue with God and his call. I said, how long, O Lord? And he said, until cities lie waste without inhabitant and houses without people, and the land is utterly desolate. And the Lord removes people far away. The forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. And though a tenth remain in it, it will be burned again like a terebinth or an oak whose stump remains standing when it is felled. So Isaiah's vision, this vision in the mid-700s BC, I think I said 600s at one point earlier in this, and I meant to say 7. In the 700s BC, Isaiah has this vision, and it's a vision of complete devastation. It's a vision that is born of witnessing an army destroying a city, burning it to the ground, leaving nothing. Desolation, ruin, complete ruin. Now, we often let ourselves fall into this notion. One of the popular errors is an error of catastrophism, popular catastrophism. There are ways of understanding dangers that people face, that dangers that society faces, dangers that we face collectively, that hold up this specter of desolation and destruction. This is often discussed, for instance, in discussions around nuclear weapons, nuclear disarmament, This type of thing is used in conversations around climate change, around economic dangers, around all these things. The idea being that catastrophe is looming and that this catastrophe will be total and absolute. I recommend not being distracted by a lot of that conversation, because one of the characteristics of our lives is that our lives have a habit of continuing. One of the characteristics of this world is that the sun will come up tomorrow morning. Tomorrow will happen. And it's really wise to avoid a lot of this kind of catastrophism of notion that, oh, it's all going to end. It's all just going to go away. Not going to end. You're going to be here. Whatever the mess is that may come from whatever means, whether it be a storm or a catastrophe of this kind or that kind, the good news is you have to deal with it. And the bad news is you have to deal with it. You got to be down here in materiality, working with all of the physical concerns of all the things that we need to do here in this world. And what Isaiah is presenting us with here is not a picture of a human future with no humans, with no people. What he's articulating to us here is that inner feeling of desolation when your agenda doesn't work, when you just throw up your arms and everything has fallen apart and it has all failed. It's all gone down the toilet. That's the human experience. That's the experience we keep getting over and over and over again. And that is an experience of incredibly profound spiritual upset, and it's the experience that we have to let go of our attachment to the immediate agenda of today. Maybe today has to happen differently. Maybe it has to happen in a different way. It has to happen in a different way. We have to let go. Isaiah is saying, what I get out of this is, look, there is a deep sense of understanding of the depth of human despair, the depth of human desolation, just how upset a person can be when what they had expected isn't being met, when they're disappointed that their life is taking a turn that's not what they wanted. And that's the desolation. So cities lie waste without inhabitant, houses with no people in them. The land is completely desolate. The Lord removes people far away. Forsaken places are many in the midst of the land. And though a tenth remain in it, it will be burned again like a terebinth or an oak whose stump remains standing when it is felled. So Isaiah sees this message of complete and total devastation. He sees that, okay, look, our agenda, our sacred agenda, is going to be wiped out. Taking that for just a moment, think about what the experience in the ancient mind was, the vision of the destruction of the temple. You know, the temple was destroyed. Jesus said, this was 740 some years later, almost 800 years later. Jesus comes along, points out the now third temple in his time, the temple built by Herod the king, Herod the Great, this magnificent temple. And Jesus says the day will come when not one stone will be upon the other. And this is a sacred agenda. You see, our lives are sacred. Our lives are blessed. Our lives are special. When you wake up in the morning and you have an agenda for this day, that's important. And when it's devastated by the upsets that occur, by the failures that occur, by the mess-ups that occur, it's devastating. And that's what we need to understand in order that we can transcend it and come back to the vision, the transcendent vision, the higher vision, to flow with the higher purpose of God. That's what we need to learn to do, to flow with the higher purpose of God, and not to be quite so tangled up in the immediate attachment to today's agenda. So we have to learn to transcend. We have to learn to let go and then open our hearts to that higher vision. And then this tiny little verse, so easy to ignore, at the key, at the end of verse 6, the holy seed is its stump. So the idea there is when Isaiah uses the expression holy seed, he is speaking of the lineage of King David. He is speaking of Davidic messianic kingship. Davidic in the line of King David. In the biblical narrative, David is effectively the ideal king who brought the kingdom into its perfect form. That's the historic vision that the people had of King David. David is restoration. David is Messiah, anointed leader, the one who comes, who puts it all back together for us. And this is something very important for us because, you see, year after year, decade after decade, century after century, we have this obsession with our earthly leaders. We fool ourselves. We fool ourselves. We fool ourselves into believing that an earthly leader can somehow cure all the problems that we face and bring our world back into being just perfectly aligned. Okay, this is a common human delusion. We need good leaders. I believe we have seen and learned in recent history just how important good leaders are. Okay, good leaders, wonderful. Bad leaders, not so wonderful. Okay, but what Isaiah is guiding us to here is a completely transcendent vision that we can see the messianic blessing that is there in the holy seed. This seed of sacredness, this seed of messianic knowledge, this seed of Christ consciousness. The seed of Christ consciousness. That is this ultimately minuscule concept, this notion of redemption, eternity, love, faith, hope, life, light. That vision that is just completely transcendent of whatever the immediate failure of the day is. The holy seed is its stump. And then what Isaiah does, that little tiny piece, and I have circled those words at the end of chapter 6. The holy seed is its stump. The idea that human failures, human agendas that work at cross purposes to each other, leading to human conflict, leading to all this trouble that we live in this world, in this life, that leads us to the devastation of all the different kinds of crises and problems that we have. All of that is redeemed by the inner hope, the vision of the divine. The vision that this whole universe actually fits together in a way that makes all this happen in a way that is glorious, that is beautiful, that is eternal, that we would, by following that calling of God in our lives, here I am. I'm in the middle of this mess. Here I am. Send me. Let me go and tell these people there is a higher calling. There is a higher vision. There is a higher purpose. There is a higher love, light, hope, and life beyond all the immediate crisis of whatever it is that's got us all upset in this moment. We can hold on and move on to the purpose of God. And that is really what starts the ministry of Isaiah. Interesting question about chapter 6. You know, it is very short and it sort of stands out from the rest of the text. And it has been suggested that this would ordinarily be where the vision would begin, because it is the story of his call. It's the story of where it was that this young priest, this young man of God, working in the temple, when King Uzziah died. Now, King Uzziah was a good king. Uzziah looked like he was going to be bringing the kingdom back into the kind of order that it had in the days of David, in the days of Solomon. Things were looking good. Isaiah's a young priest. He's starting out his career, and Uzziah dies. See, the vision actually begins with a brokenness of despair. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. So whatever our agenda is, wherever we are in the development of that agenda, however things are going, for us, in the moment of loss, in the moment of crisis, we can encounter the transcendent, and encountering the transcendent brings us to the realization of the divine, allows us to flow through the trouble on to the light and glory of God. And I think that is a really good vision for us to hold as we get ready to go through all the wonderful things of Christmas. It's December coming up very soon. And the one thing about December is everything happens in December. Now, Sunday, I will be preaching in Pine Tops at 10 o'clock in the morning. And Linda Catherine Clark will be preaching at Cobb and Nahala. So we have services at all three churches, at Nahala at 9:30 with Linda Catherine, at 11 o'clock at Cobb with Linda Catherine, and I will be speaking in Pine Tops at 10 o'clock. 2023 is coming up. Next year, starting in January, I will be preaching in Pine Tops every month, at least one Sunday every month. And I believe Reverend Linda Catherine Clark, will be doing the services at Cobb and Nahala monthly, one time a month, while I go down to Pine Tops. So we're gradually getting this huge three-church parish organized, and that seems to be working well. And I hope your Christmas thing goes well. I hope you're doing well. Call me, email me, let me know how you're doing, and we will see you all on Sunday or here on the internet. God bless you all.